Gentlemen, you can't fight here. This is the war room. What's up, watchers? In today's episode, we will be tackling a film that is a major contributor in the world of political satire.
Some people consider this to be one of the funniest movies ever made, and it regularly ends up on lists of the greatest films of all time.
So head on down to your local Fallout shelter as we break down Stanley Kubrick's 1964 classic, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Learn to Love the Bomb. That's such a great name.
I know.
Welcome to the Midnight Watch Podcast, the show where we discuss classic, cult, and modern classic movies.
We're your hosts, Josh and Jeremy, and we try to review movies that are at least 10 years old and see what kind of impact they made or are still making on culture and the film industry.
We rate these movies in 4 categories. Number 1, the level of impact and success it had when it was released. Number 2, how relevant is it today? Number 3, our personal enjoyment of the movie. And number 4, is it a midnight watch?
So, like we said in the intro, today we're doing Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove. We had so much fun doing Alfred Hitchcock's movie Psycho that we thought we'd dust off another older classic from the 1960s. Jeremy, what are some fun facts you have to start us off with?
All right, let's jump right into it. This is directed by Stanley Kubrick. I was trying to find more information on the screenwriter. Stanley Kubrick helped with that, but he was not the only person to do that. It is loosely based on Pete George's book Red Alert that came out a few years before that. The budget is $1.8 million, and the box office made $9.4 million, so it definitely made money. Let's see here. Like you said, it's one of the best comedies ever made. It was nominated for Best Picture for an Academy Award, and nominated for Best Director and Best Actor, Peter Sellers, who plays 3 different characters in this movie. And
that's pretty cool, yeah.
Dude, just Peter Sellers, knowing that he played 3 different characters, he's a completely different character with those. So he does such a good job.
Right. Yeah, they're very broad from one to the other. It's pretty amazing.
Right. Let's see. But they did not win Best Movie, unfortunately. They lost to My Fair Lady, which swept the Oscars that year. So
that is a solid film.
How can you say no to Rex Harrison? You know, he's not the Music Man. That's that other dude.
Right. I'm totally drawing a blank on him.
Rex Harrison is from Dr. Dolittle.
Right. That's it.
Yeah. But Robert Preston. That's who we were thinking of. Yeah. Robert Preston. Amazing in The Music Man. So anyways, We're not talking about that one.
And The Last Starfighter.
I know, right? Yeah. we're gonna get to that, but I was like, that's exactly what I was trying to think of, was like, what's the name of that movie? That other classic 80s movie. That's literally the only other movie I know of with Robert Preston.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like you get to be kind of a nerd to know that too, and know him from The Music Man, put it that way, because you might know him just from The Last Starfighter.
Right.
The Music Man, we wore that movie out growing up.
I know. And then Family Guy is all like making fun of it, and he's all like, "Shabooby, shabooby," and he's doing the dance.
Yeah.
All right, back to this movie. This movie has an awesome name, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. That's definitely the longest name that we've reviewed so far, and that's probably like 50% of the reason I wanted to review this movie, just so I could have that in our list of movies. People will be like, "What is that?" and click on it. It's a very 60s name for sure. This movie stars Peter Sellers, George C. Scott, Slim Pickens, Sterling Hayden. This is Keenan Wynn and Peter Bull. Now, this movie also stars James Earl Jones. I wouldn't say stars, but it's definitely, he's in the movie. And a cool thing,
for sure, he's got I won't say significant the scenes that he's in. Mm-hmm. He's got a healthy amount of lines.
I will say this is the actual film debut of James Earl Jones, which is pretty awesome. I didn't know before reviewing the movie. I mean, don't get me wrong. James Earl Jones is like that type of actor that just sweetens the movie. The movie could be terrible, and he's in the movie, and you're like, it actually wasn't that bad.
Right.
So, yeah. Well, I've got a bunch of other interesting information in this movie, but we should probably go into the synopsis before I just jump off into the trivia, the trivia sea.
There we go. Yeah, and pay attention to the names here. This movie it's got sight gags, obviously, but the dialogue is very funny, and the names of a lot of the characters are super funny. So here we go. Pay attention.
There's one more thing real quick. Yeah, like you said, this movie has got jokes upon jokes upon jokes, and I know I missed half of the jokes because I wasn't born in 1964 and didn't realize the political issues when it came out. But yeah, the people's names were all specifically picked for different things. The situations were, and even some of the characters were typecast like against themselves. Like Peter Sellers was actually supposed to be the general that actually is the villain in this movie, but he broke his leg right before it started. And so, which honestly, that's the best thing that happened for him, because we get three terrific characters from him. And
George Scott is amazing. He is so funny. So funny. Okay, we got it. Let's do the synopsis, and then we'll start breaking this down, because there's a lot to talk about here. Okay, this comes to you once again courtesy from Wikipedia. Not a sponsor.
But we should probably donate, though.
Right?
Okay, guys, donate to Wikipedia.
Got to keep them open. Okay, here we go. United States Air Force Brigadier General Jack D. Ripper is commander of Burleson Air Force Base, which houses the Strategic Air Command, SAC or SAC, 843rd Bomb Wing, flying B-52 bombers armed with hydrogen bombs. The 843rd Wing is flying an airborne alert 2 hours from their targets inside the USSR. Ripper explains to Mandrake that he discovered the communist plot to pollute Americans' precious bodily fluids during the physical act of love. General Ripper orders his executive officer, Group Captain Lionel Mandrake of the UK Royal Air Force, to put the base on alert and to issue Wing Attack Plan R to the patrolling aircraft, one of which is commanded by Major T.J. King Kong. All of the aircraft commenced on an attack flight on the USSR and set their radios to allow communications only through their CRM 114 discriminators, which was designed to accept only communications preceded by a secret three-letter code known only to General Ripper. Mandrake discovers that no war order has been issued by the Pentagon, and he tries to stop Ripper, who locks them both in his office. Ripper tells Mandrake that he believes the Soviets have been using fluoridation of the American water supplies to pollute the precious bodily fluids of Americans. Mandrake realizes that Ripper has gone insane. In the war room at the Pentagon, General Buck Turgison briefs President Merkin Muffley and other officers about how Plan R enables a senior officer to launch a strike against the Soviets if all superiors have been killed in a first strike on the United States. Turgison reports that his men are trying every possible three-letter CRM code to issue the stand-down order, but that could take over 2 days, and the planes are due to reach their targets in a couple of hours. Muffley orders the U.S. Army to storm the base and arrest General Ripper. Turgison then attempts to convince Muffley to let the attack continue, but Muffley refuses to be party to a nuclear first strike. Instead, he brings Soviet ambassador, why was that so hard to say? Alexei D. Sadetsky into the war room to telephone Soviet Premier Dmitry Kisov on the hotline. Muffley warns the premier of the impending attack and offers to reveal the positions of the bombers and targets so that the Soviets can protect themselves. After a heated discussion in Russian with the premier, the ambassador informs President Muffley that the Soviet Union has created a doomsday machine, which consists of many buried bombs jacketed with cobalt thorium-G, connected to a computer network set to detonate them automatically should any nuclear attack strike the country. Within 2 months after detonation, the cobalt thorium-G would encircle the planet in a radioactive doomsday shroud, wiping out all human and animal life and rendering the surface of the Earth uninhabitable. The device cannot be deactivated, as it is programmed to explode if any such attempt is made. When the president's wheelchair-bound scientific advisor, the former Nazi German Dr. Strangelove, points out that such a doomsday machine would only be an effective deterrent if everyone knew about it, Desadetsky replies that the Soviet premier had planned to reveal its existence to the world the following week.
That line's
Meanwhile,
really funny. When he's like, it only works if everybody knows you have a doomsday device. And the Russian guy's like, we were going to reveal it on Tuesday.
Okay, back to it. Meanwhile, U.S. Army troops arrive at Burleson, and General Ripper shoots and kills himself. Mandrake identifies Ripper's CRM code from his desk blotter, OPE, a variant of both peace on earth and purity of essence, and relays this code to the Pentagon. Using the recall code, SAC successfully recalls all the bombers except one whose radio equipment has been destroyed. The Soviets attempt to find it, but its commanding officer, Major Kong, with his fuel dwindling, has switched to a closer backup target. As the plane approaches the new target, the crew is unable to open the damaged bomb bay doors. Kong enters the bomb bay and repairs the broken electrical wiring while sitting on the H-bomb, whereupon the doors open and the bomb is dropped. With Kong straddling it, the bomb falls and detonates over a Soviet missile site. Bomber Commander Major T.J. Kong writing the bomb down. Back in the war room, Dr. Strangelove recommends that the president gather several 100,000 people to live in deep underground mines where the radiation will not penetrate. He suggests a 10-to-1 female-to-male ratio for a breeding program to repopulate the Earth once the radiation has subsided. Turgidson, worried that the Soviets will do the same, warns about a mine shaft gap, while Alexei secretly photographs the war room. Dr. Strangelove declares he has a plan, but then rises from his wheelchair and announces, "Mein Führer, I can walk," as the Doomsday Machine activates. The film ends with a montage of many nuclear explosions, accompanied by Vera Lynn's version of the World War II song, "We'll Meet Again." And I don't know if any of that made any sense. As I'm reading it, I'm like, this is a little jumbled together.
A little bit over the top in breaking it down. By the way, I misspoke. Actually, Peter Sellers was actually going to play Major Kong, Slim Pickens' character.
Oh, you're right. Yep.
Not General Muffler.
No, Turgidson.
No, not Turgidson. Turgidson was always going to be George C. Scott, the bad guy. But anyways.
Right.
Yeah, but so there's a lot of interesting things about this movie. So, for example, this is the first movie that the number letters and numbers CRM 114 up here in Stanley Kubrick's movies. Like this movie that little sequences of letters and numbers shows up in tons of different movies and TV shows throughout the years. It's kind of like George Lucas's THX 1138. So it's pretty interesting. And also too, like the other cool part about this is also among the titles that they were considering for this movie was Dr. Doomsday, or How to Start World War III Without Even Trying. Dr. Strangelove's Secret Uses of Uranus, which I don't know how they would have gotten that past the censors.
No, I don't think that's possible.
And Wonderful Bomb. But, dude, Stanley Kubrick, okay, so love him or hate him, this dude was extremely almost like over the top in like everything in his movies. Like 90% of what happens in his movies is pre-planned. Like Alfred Hitchcock was pre-planned everything in his movies pretty much, but Stanley Kubrick is even more anal than Hitchcock. And so like he supposedly read over like 50 different books on the war, and like how he could get this to be as realistic as possible before they spun it as satire.
Right.
That's pretty crazy, dude. And actually, watching this movie, knowing it was satire, it's still kind of unnerving. Like,
absolutely. It's crazy how much it feels like a modern movie in regards to how the politicians are acting and the military people. And you're like, this is still how it is today.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's disturbing.
Oh, yeah. And then, like, the interesting part about it, too, though, is, like, they actually, like, built the part where they're in the B-52, like, that bombing jet airplane was new at the time. That was, like, not top secret, but it was, like, brand new.
But it was pretty secret, though.
Yeah, so they basically had to build, like, they had one photograph to build the cockpit off of. And so they built that whole thing, and then, like, later Air Force officials were like, actually, that's pretty close to accurate. So
right. Yeah, they were not, the Air Force did not want to help them out with constructing, the set for it.
But that makes sense though, because I know like during World War II, like Mickey Mouse cartoons and stuff, they'd have like they would be showing cartoons and saying like, hey, you buy war bonds, support our troops, and so they'd show like different like cartoonish versions of war machines and stuff, and so like our enemies at the time would watch these cartoons trying to find out like what some of our secret stuff is. And so with it being the Cold War and Kennedy being assassinated, what was it, the year before this came out? Because then like that, it makes sense that the United States Air Force was like, we're not going to help you out at all because we don't want the Reds to like see what we're doing over here. And so it's pretty intense. Like, Stanley Kubrick,
it was real deal. They were the Cold War. I mean, I don't know if you remember the end of it, because I think it ended in the late, I can't remember exact day now, the late 80s.
Yeah, the 80s.
I remember, actually, you may not even, you were probably a baby.
I doubt that. I was probably just thinking about sleep.
Right.
Sleep and poop or something.
But I remember seeing pictures in the newspaper, though, of, the Berlin Wall coming down, and it was kind of a big deal. So, I mean, it was a huge deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something that, we didn't really truly experience. Right.
And I definitely think some of the comedy in this would be funnier if I had really understood a lot of what was going on at the time, which I'm familiar with some of the actors in this and seeing some of the tropes that they would do. So that's pretty funny. But there's another.
And some of the humor still it is relevant today, some of it, which is good. But you're right. If you actually knew, if you were alive in that time period, I'm sure it was even funnier.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And don't get me wrong, like, I still thought this movie was pretty funny. Like, I was watching this movie by myself, and I was laughing out loud at different parts. Right. And, it's legitly a funny movie. I can understand why it's considered one of the greatest comedies ever made.
Well, speaking of experiencing things, when was the first time you saw this movie?
Oh, good question. I don't know why we always forget this until
I know.
It's like, well, that's about
it's right there in the notes.
I know. We always forget it.
Early on.
It's the most forgettable thing, apparently.
At least to us.
Yeah. Okay, so a short story about this. I was like 14, 15, and I filmed a little short video with my sister and my cousin about this. It's basically cop and robber thing. And so anyways, the robber's hand gets infected and then like tries to kill him, so he has to cut his own hand off, and it's played for laughs. And I did that in homage to Evil Dead, because I just saw that and thought that was amazing. So we showed this to our grandpa, Sir, and like he started busting up, and I was like thinking, oh, this is cool, like this is really funny, I guess, like, oh, this is awesome. And then like later I talked to him like a week later, and he was like, I'm surprised that you've seen that movie. And I was like thinking of Evil Dead still, didn't realize until later that like he was talking about Dr. Strangelove. Yeah, how his whole hand is still a Nazi hand, and he's trying to like downplay it. He keeps throwing up the Heil Hitler sign, and he's pulling it down and like smacking his hand. He's like, no,
alien hand.
The alien.
I think that's what they actually called it, alien hand syndrome or something.
No. Okay, so this is crazy, by the way. Another thing right here, but I found this out. Okay, it's agnostic apraxia. And basically, it's caused by damage to the corpus callosum, the nerve fibers that connect the brain's two hemispheres. So basically, the researchers that found this out, this is a real condition actually, where your hand could just like flip out and do its own thing. So they call it Dr. Strangelove syndrome.
No way.
Yeah. So like this is something that after this movie came out, then they like found out like that actually some people really can't control some of their appendages, and so they'll just do spaz and do different things. So who knows, maybe that person in church that you thought was like waving hallelujah, maybe they have that's bad. But anyways, so that I finally watched this movie. I think after my grandpa had mentioned this movie, then I was like, oh, what's that? And so I ended up watching it then, and I was so bored because I was wasn't even 18, didn't get most of this, and the only thing I liked out of it was Dr. Strangelove's character. So what about you?
Well, my little story with this is I remember seeing a preview for this on, I can't remember what the movie was that, I feel like it's a movie we saw several times growing up, some other old movie from the 60s. And this was, an advertisement for it.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, this movie looks crazy. And then the part with Slim Pickens, I'm like, I recognized him from, I don't know, just Westerns that we had seen because we watched a lot of old Westerns growing up.
Oh, yeah. He's in a ton of Disney movies. Yeah.
Yeah. And Roy Rogers, or I don't know, just different, maybe John Wayne. I can't remember exactly. But I just remember seeing his parts, and then, some of the War Room scenes with George C. Scott. And just, I remember thinking as a kid, like, man, this movie doesn't make sense. Like, why would they I didn't think they made movies like this back then.
Right.
And I was like, that's so crazy. Maybe it's like stuff it felt like to me, like it was clips from 3 different movies that they put together to make a funny advertisement or something. Like, it didn't even make sense that was a real movie.
Right.
So there was that. So I was aware of it. And then I didn't realize until, high school, or maybe, I don't know, maybe after high school, where I saw that this was an actual movie.
Oh, wow.
So and I was like, oh my gosh. So there was that. And then I probably watched this movie about, I don't know, 12 or 13 years ago. I think I rented it from the library.
Oh, okay.
And that was the first time I'd actually seen it.
I think I actually rented this movie from the library too. Great place to get movies for free, guys. Seriously.
That's right.
Like, just go on there, get your movies. They have like thousands of movies that you can watch for free.
Yeah. Super good resource there.
What did you think about it when you first saw it? Like, did you have any... So, because this movie's so different than anything that we've reviewed so far, like, what were your thoughts on it?
Initially, definitely parts that I thought were funny, but then I don't think I'd seen a whole lot of satire at the time. And so it was a little hard to follow.
Right.
It definitely has its own pace. And if you're not ready for it, it can seem a little dry at times.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't know what you're getting into. And then I watched it again probably 5 or 6 years ago with my old movie club. And
nice. From the SAC?
From SAC. So I think we were probably doing like a Stanley Kubrick day, and we were probably just watching as many of his movies as we could. So that was definitely on the docket.
That's awesome. I know this movie is definitely a lesser known Stanley Kubrick film, because when people think of Kubrick, they think of like immediately The Shining, or Clockwork Orange, or
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket, Eyes Wide Shut, like his later films.
Right.
This was his last movie that was in black and white, and this was the only comedy that he ever directed.
Right. Yeah, I was actually really surprised once I started knowing, kind of paying attention to what Kubrick had done maybe 20 years ago, and it kind of surprised me that this was one of his movies. And then I made also realize, like, oh my gosh, this guy made, a fair amount of movies, because you really only think about the stuff he made in the 70s and onward.
Right. Oh, and then like 2001, of course, Space Odyssey.
Sure.
Yeah, he also directed Spartacus, which that was a big deal one, because he's directed tons of different types of movies. Like, I would dare say he's done a movie in almost every genre, which is pretty crazy, because most people, that's when you are a fantastic director. And like right now, somebody who's working that does something similar, has done multiple genres, is James Wan, the director of Saw. That dude is amazing. Like, you should check out his movies. I mean, he did Fast 7. He's done a lot of horror movies, and then he did Death Sentence with Kevin Bacon. Was actually pretty solid. But anyways, yeah.
I just looked it up. He did 6 movies before Dr. Strangelove.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is crazy. I mean, the only one I was aware of was Spartacus.
Or I know he did, what's the Lolita?
Lolita.
Yeah. He did that one. And then
the other ones were Paths of Glory, The Killer's Kiss, and his first movie in 1953, Fear and Desire.
I heard The Killing's pretty good. I haven't checked that out. I need to watch his finish his category of movies.
Right. His catalog.
That's what I meant to say.
Right. I knew what you meant.
Category.
So he had a bunch of earlier stuff that and the only reason, it's funny, the only reason I know about Spartacus is because of, I'm totally having
was it the movie That Thing You Do?
No, because of no. But I knew Kirk. I knew Kirk Douglas was in it.
Kirk Douglas is the man.
Yeah.
Love me some Kirk Douglas.
Playing Spartacus.
He was also great in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Okay, we need to get back on this train.
Right. Turn it around.
We're playing 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon right now.
I know. 6 degrees of Stanley Kubrick.
Right. The Kubrick kaleidoscope is what we're doing right now.
Yeah, the Kubrick connection.
There we go. Yeah, so let's go into this. Let's talk about how this movie competes with the movie Failsafe. Have you seen that one?
I have not. Did you watch that one?
And I saw they showed this movie when I was in band. I don't know why they played it in band class, but I watched it there. That was one of those movies that was really weird. So this movie basically,
that's odd.
I know. I still don't. Maybe I don't know. I missed something right there. A band class and watch a movie on the Cold War. So, anyways,
right.
Yeah. But Failsafe was coming out the same year that this was, and so Stanley Kubrick didn't like that because the movies are so similar. So he sued the makers of Failsafe, and then they settled out of court. And one of his things was that his movie was to be released before Failsafe, so they would think that it wasn't a satire of Failsafe. And which Failsafe is a really famous movie as well, showing like the potential repercussions of something going wrong and the end of the world starting by accident. So, anyways,
well, I know the author of the book. I don't know if it was called Failsafe or anyways. The book that movie's based on. I think the author of Red Alert sued that guy for plagiarism because it was so similar and the characters were even very similar.
Really? Okay, that's pretty intense.
So that kind of got worked into the lawsuit and added a lot more punch to it.
Right.
For them to get that movie squashed, at least for a year. And I actually had good reviews when it came out from what I was reading, but it obviously just didn't make the splash that Dr. Strangelove did. Yeah,
Dr. Strangelove is still, like, to this day, like, heralded as like a fantastic, phenomenal movie. I would just say in public circles nowadays, it's just not as well known. But especially when it came out, and then and people that watch old school cinema, like they know what Dr. Strangelove is, for sure.
Yeah, on a pop culture level, probably hard to get people to recognize this one. But for sure, if you're a film nerd, you've probably heard of it.
Yeah. Okay, no, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to jump into one of the first scenes in the movie is when it opens up and the opening credits are playing. They're showing these tanker fuelers refueling the B-52s in the air.
Yeah.
And our Uncle Rich flew those.
Oh, are you serious? I didn't know that.
Yeah, in the 70s.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
See? Another connection to this film.
There we go.
Hey, did you know? I didn't know this, but the Muse actually did a song based off this movie, The Time Is Running Out song.
Really? I love that song.
I know. I didn't know that. That's pretty awesome. But yeah, also, too, they wanted to make a sequel to this movie in 1995. Kubrick wanted to do a sequel, and it was going to be called Son of Strangelove, and it was going to be about Dr. Strangelove surviving underground with women. So that alone, it sounds like it's going to be hilarious.
Right.
But he wanted Terry Gilliam to direct.
Oh, wow. What a pairing.
That would have been awesome. But unfortunately, the screenwriter who wrote this one, I think his name's Terry Stevens, he passed away before finishing it. And then, of course, Kubrick passed away, I think, around the year 2000 or something like that. Right. So Terry Gilliam didn't even know about it until afterwards. And he was like, oh, that would have been really fun to do.
Yeah.
So that would have been pretty awesome.
That would have been amazing. Jumping back in, though, man, one of the funniest scenes in the movie, right towards the beginning, is when George C. Scott, who plays the other general, Turgison. Thank you. So his secretary gets a call, and which takes place in a hotel room where they're hooking up, and so she's trying. They're trying to be all professional and make it sound like they're still at the office conducting work, but really they're.
Which, by the way, that is the only scene in the movie where there is a woman in the scene.
There you go.
But yeah,
I found out she was I guess she was a Playboy model.
Oh yeah, she's when Slim Pickens is looking at the Playboy later in the movie.
Right,
that's her.
Right, she was on the cover of that issue. But anyways, when George C. Scott comes out, and at one point towards the end of the phone conversation, he's just wearing boxers and like his dress socks, but he full on like slaps his belly and it just makes this super loud smacking noise, and it just kills. Like I don't care how old you are, it's hilarious, and you just die laughing.
It's so funny. I interrupted you. I'm sorry, but yeah, you're talking about how like you can obviously tell like they're together in the hotel room, but on the phone trying to be all professional. And oh, dude, like that. Also, too, I love that where she's like, "He can't come to the phone right now. Can I take a message?" And he's like, "Oh, hi, Frank. How you doing?" And then he's like, "Oh, Frank, I mean, like, I don't know. It's like, is this really serious?" And then she's relaying like top secret information over the phone, like yelling it across the room, right? Because
he's in the bathroom.
Because he's in the bathroom, and it's just so funny because you're just like, "Oh my gosh, is this for real?" Like it's the subtle type of humor like that that's really funny, where it's like. It's a black comedy. Like, don't get me wrong. It's definitely, most of it's played serious, except for, I would say, Peter Sellers' character, Dr. Strangelove, who's barely in the movie, actually.
I know. That really surprised me the first time I saw this movie. I kept expecting, Dr. Strangelove, it's the name of the movie. And then he's barely in it, and mostly at the very end, pretty much. Yeah,
he's got the thing that he is most known for with his arm, like trying to kill him, trying to choke him, and he's constantly fighting with his own arm. That's like the last scene in the movie, pretty much. I was watching the movie, and right before that scene happened, and Slim Pickens rides the bomb down, and he's all like whooping and hollering, which is like the first time I saw it, it actually kind of threw me off. I was like, what? I don't get it. And this time I was like, okay, that's funny. That's really funny because Slim Pickens. By the way, this movie was a big break for Slim Pickens. But this is the movie that really kicked off his acting career, which is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. But I also heard that when he showed up on set, people thought, "Oh, that's cool. He showed up in character," because he showed up wearing cowboy boots and like a fringe Western shirt and a hat, and then somebody was like, "No, that's how he dresses all the time."
No, that's Slim Pickens.
That's Slim Pickens,
right? And yeah, James Earl Jones was quoted as he thought he was a method actor, just staying in character until after the movie was over, and he met him, and he was like, "No, that's just who you are." And so
this guy's a hillbilly all the way.
Don't get me wrong. Like Slim Pickens is legit, and
so cool.
Oh yeah, which is hilarious, but. Yeah, anyways, just like those different sequences, though, where it's pretty crazy. But then when Dr. Strangelove shows up at the end, I was like waiting for that scene where he does the whole like, "Mein Führer, I can walk," and does that thing. That whole sequence, I was literally like, okay, this was like 1 a.m. when I was watching the movie, but I was like, is this like, I started questioning. I was like, is this from this movie? Like, was I confused because I haven't seen this movie in a long time? But that's why it's like, no, it's at the very end of the movie. It's like what his big Dr. Strangelove scene is.
Right. It's crazy. So you have that, and he's playing this, I mean, just kind of doofy German scientist.
Yeah.
And then he also plays the major or general, not general, Mandrake. What was his?
Yeah, Mandrake. He plays the officer. What is that? What is that called when you're in school and you have it's the officer exchange program, and he's he's a British officer, and which maybe that's a real thing, but that cracked me up where I was like, it's the officer exchange program, and he's this British.
Well, I think the Strategic Air Command, I think they were kind of I think they did partner with other Western allied countries, specifically Great Britain.
I don't know, maybe
Group Captain Lionel Mandrake. That's the one.
Yeah, that was one thing I would say he probably had the most heart with that one, because you can see like when the general is like, he realizes the general's freaking crazy, and then he's just trying to get the numbers out to stop this catastrophe.
Right. He has a very serious. That's probably one of the most serious like straight roles in the movie. Like he doesn't really crack him maybe a couple jokes,
but that's more really, of like. That's more of like there's crazy stuff happening around him, and he's
the straight guy, the straight man in it.
And also him though playing the president of the United States, he's very serious in that as well. But
he is, but then he falls into this whole like kind of Weasley, whiny, kind of weak-willed politician.
Right.
Kind of role. Well, he'll talk really big about, we're not going to do this. And then the Russian starts talking to him, the Russian president. And, Dmitry, but you know.
Oh, yeah.
You know. And then he just kind of starts, backing down. And it's just, I don't want to get into like politics or anything, but just a lot of the characters and General Turgison and you just have a lot of these same kind of characters today. Like, I don't think it changes in history. You have, you know, a lot of loud political bravado. Oh, we're going to be this way. And then behind closed doors, oh, no. Then they back down and they kind of cower. And then this aggressive polarization of, you know, one side versus the other side. And, you know, lots of big talk, but then you have pushovers and America first. And then, you know, no, give it all away. And it's crazy. Like, all the stuff that's, you know, the opposing sides of politics today are in this movie way back. You know, 60, 70 years ago.
And you want to say that it's like cartoonized or whatever. It's not. Like, it's, I mean, it's obviously a little bit more dramatic, but like, dude, like the part that I laughed really hard at, but at the same time, I know people like this though, is like the whole like America First thing, is when George C. Scott's character is when at the end the president's like, is there any way like that we can stop the one lone plane? Like, is he flying too low? And he gets excited and he's all like, he's like, he's like, you
gotta see it. These pilots we got, man, they can fly so low to the ground they'll never see it coming.
He's all like, do you feel that coming through you? And you'll never see it. And then you see like his face change. Such good acting where he realizes like, this is bad. Like the pilot is so good at his job that we can't stop him from dropping the bomb. Yeah.
Right.
And that his face changes. So you're laughing at him because you know people that are like, yeah, America first. And like, it's just, it is so funny because like, then you see his face turn like to horror of like, we can't stop this, you know? But, yeah, but it's pretty interesting. There's no music in this movie except for when Johnny comes marching home, when they play that in the B-52, when they're like going around. I didn't think there was any funny parts in the B-52 part. What did you think? I thought that part was kind of more serious, like to help.
It is. I mean, and Slim Pickens is kind of inherently funny, just with his
mannerisms.
Just hillbilly colloquialisms.
Like he's he's funny and likable, like just
but nothing like. I guess what's funny is that they're so serious.
They're very serious, and I think that's why the killer line that cracked me up out loud was when at the end and they're trying to like they finally get the 3-digit code and Mandrake is running and the guy breaks in, the other general breaks in, holds him at gunpoint, and he's like, I've got the code, I can stop this. Let me make a phone call. And then he goes to make the collect phone call, and he doesn't have enough change, and the other guy doesn't either. He's like, I'm in army fatigues. I don't carry loose change on me. And he's like, well, then shoot that Coke, that Coke dispensing machine. And he's like, but that's private property. And he says it
just deadpan.
And it's like, that is like so funny because it's such a serious part of the movie. And he says that, and that's why I think some of these lines in these movies are killer because the movie's played serious, and then there's some characters that are just over the top.
Yeah. Which that guy, Colonel Guano, Bat Guano, that's a funny.
Which is actually every one of these words or names is joke for something, and that one's joke for bat crap.
Right.
Like, that's actually it.
The that actor Keenan Wynn, you probably, I don't know if you recognize him. He's a villain in a lot of Disney movies later on, like 10, 20 years later.
Yeah.
But he's in that Disney movie with Kurt Russell, the computer that wore tennis shoes. He's the Mr. Arno or whatever. He's like the loan shark thug kind of guy in it.
I know. I remember him being
great actor. And the other thing I did not know, even though last name, obviously, I just never put together, but his dad is the famous Ed Wynn. The guy that plays Uncle Albert in Mary Poppins.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, and he's the toy maker in Babes in Toyland, and just, you know, really famous actor in that time.
Ah, wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I know. So I remember him. Cool. I remember him from Snowmobile Express.
Right.
That's one of my personal favorite childhood movies. And then he was in Piranha, actually, believe it or not.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Yeah. So I saw him. I was like, hey, it's that guy.
Right. So there was one thing that I didn't know until I was reading about the movie, but George C. Scott, so he's a very over-the-top character, just kind of larger than life. and a very funny kind of guy. But apparently he was a very serious kind of actor, and Kubrick kept pushing him to act like way over the top, and he didn't like that. George Scott didn't like that. He thought that was, silly, and that's, I'm a serious actor. So Kubrick totally fooled him and said, okay, I want to do some warm-up takes of each scene. I want you to act way over the top and then dial it back down and nail it, seriously. But he was totally tricking him, and he kept all the footage of him being over the top, doing everything super funny, and that's what he used in the movie, and he didn't even know, Mr. Scott didn't know about it until the movie came out, which obviously made him mad.
That is a classic douche move from Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah.
People think Hitchcock
Pretty
was
genius.
Yeah, people think Hitchcock was kind of a douchebag, but Stanley Kubrick definitely tops the level of directors of unless we get into like the golden age of directors and stuff like that, like the 40s and 50s. Like, people were just freaking brutal back then. But yeah, Kubrick though, I'm not a fan of the way he directed movies, but he did put out some fantastic films.
Right. Well, he wanted a certain effect, and he, dirty street fighting tactics to get it, and he got it done.
Well, and the thing that's funny, and like completely different to that, is Peter Sellers, when he was on set, I guess most people were like working, since Stanley Kubrick had such control over everything, that the set was like super organized. People didn't talk a lot, except for Peter Sellers was like the one person that Stanley Kubrick was constantly laughing when Peter Sellers was around. And so like the one scene when Peter Sellers was doing the Dr. Strangelove, like the whole hand trying to choke himself and thing, like that whole scene, there's a bunch of quick cuts because the cast around him, there's like 30 people around him in that scene. They all kept cracking up with him doing that. So they had to keep cutting the scene multiple times. So like apparently he kept the feeling like pretty light on this, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
I think let's see here. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah. Well, I got one last thing. General Ripper, the guy that starts off the whole thing there when the army base is being attacked by the rest of the army, and he whips out this big old huge machine gun, and he's holding the barrel with his bare hand, and he's just firing away, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that would have his hand would have caught on a fire. Like, so not realistic, but that was kind of fun to see.
Oh, I did love that too. And he like stands up at the window when there's like some shots start going into the office, and he's like, "That all you got, boys?" And then it's like right next to him,
just like psychotic matter of fact.
Oh yeah,
it's going down.
He's off his rocker, and I love how he just keeps bringing back they're like, we'd have to protect our bodily fluids from the Ruskies,
right?
And that was pretty funny, just how like psychotic he was.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's so much innuendo, sexual innuendo in this movie, but
from the first clip alone with the B-52 bombers like getting gas, like yeah, it's subtly not so subtle,
for sure. Which is funny why it was still so widely accepted even in the time.
Kubrick was pretty smart with that, which is kind of funny because like his later films are obviously. He doesn't hold back, especially Clockwork.
Yeah, he definitely pushed the boundaries almost every film.
Right. Absolutely. This movie, though, it's just, it's one you should definitely, if you're a fan of cinema, you should definitely watch this movie because it is, I don't know if it was the first political satire movie, but it's definitely.
It's not. I looked that up myself to see, and it definitely been around. There was quite a few other ones, but this one set the high mark, and it's still kind of a benchmark political satire film.
That's awesome because it's hard to pull off a movie that's political satire that's like making fun of serious stuff and being genuinely funny too.
Right.
So
and being genuinely heavy and disturbing all the way through, which is kind of how it leaves you feeling. Yeah,
so. Congress actually they showed the clip when Mandrake is like ran out of change and is trying to like make the phone call at the end to stop the bomb. They showed that in Congress, and they actually raised legitimate questions of like, could this happen in real life if one person has the power to set off this chain of events that would start World War III? Right. Not the president, like somebody else in command. And so the Air Force now has said like there's no way that this could actually happen in real life. But I think it's interesting though that this did get brought up in Congress, and people had to talk about it for a little bit. So
right, and make sure that that wasn't actually something that could happen that easily.
Right, absolutely. So, well, we're running late on time on this one, so let's get into our final verdicts.
Yeah. So how do you feel it held up, or how do you feel it did in 1964 when it came out?
Well, it had strong reviews, and I think it was pretty good, pretty solid movie. Like, it made its money, but I think also too, the reason I think it made its money though is this movie was shot uber cheap. There's only like literally 3 sound stages in this entire film.
Right.
And I think that's actually kind of smart, because it being a political satire, it could have bombed bad if it was a high budget film.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think that bombed bad, no pun intended.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, but I think it did hit its mark though, in that it made $8 million for sure.
Yeah, definitely made its money.
I'd give it a B for hitting its mark when it first came out.
Yeah, I would definitely give it actually, I'd almost give it an A, considering it was also up for so many Academy Awards.
Oh, I forgot about that. You're right.
Yeah.
Never mind. I gave it an A. Yeah.
Not to make you change your vote on that one.
I'm not easily swayed, folks.
That was quick.
Not at all. Recount.
All right. So how relevant do you think it is today?
How relevant do I think it is today? Well, the fact that like the political shift in stuff like that is in the constant threat of World War III, and just how no matter what century you're in, there's always a new threat. I feel like it's that fear is still there, and that fear of like something happening by accident. So I would say it's actually pretty relevant. And then also in the case of filmmaking, of course, it's definitely it's a classic with in cinema. So I would say, I give it a B for relevance still.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm right there with you. I also gave it a B. It's definitely a satirical classic and relevant today. So yeah, a B on both of those.
What about personal enjoyment for yourself?
So this is where I'm a little torn. I want to like this movie a lot more than I actually do. I mean, there's parts of this movie that I really love, but all in all, my 3rd time watching this movie, and I still found myself kind of nodding off a little bit at times. So it sucks, because I really want to like this more than I do, but I'm gonna have to give it a D+.
What?
I know, man.
Really? Okay, so that's really interesting. I will admit,
there's certain scenes in this movie I really like,
right?
But as a whole, I just feel, I don't know.
Oh, dude, you don't like that whole part when they're in the war room and he's like got to call the Russian guy in, and he's like, "Sir, are you sure you want to?" He's like,
I'm serious. There's a lot of scenes that I like in it, but just whenever I think of this movie, I'm always like, man, I wish I liked it more than I do.
Dude, George C. Scott is so funny though when he's like, "But he'll see the big board, sir." And then his girlfriend,
no doubt, he's my favorite character in that movie for sure.
Right? And then his girlfriend calls him in the war room, and he's like halfway under the table. He's like, "Baby, I love you. I gotta go."
Right.
Anyways, sorry, I just remembered that. Oh, one more tidbit I forgot about. Remember they bring in the Russian ambassador in, and they walk past this huge buffet of like food.
Right.
They set that scene up because at the end of the movie they were gonna have a pie fight between the Air Force and another one, and then they thought it was too cheesy, so they completely cut it out. But I think that might be on a DVD where you can watch that scene. But anyways, personal enjoyment for me. So this movie started off slow, and I was like, what did I get myself into?
Right.
And then it just, once they introduced George C. Scott, like the movie had me. It captivated me. I started chuckling, then I started laughing, and then like I was getting actually nervous because of how serious it is. Like as an adult now, understanding the repercussions of this, of what would potentially happen in this fictional film. So, dude, you gave it a D-. I give it a B in personal enjoyment.
Wow, that's awesome. That's the biggest spread I think we've ever had on our rankings.
Right,
I was ratings on it,
because most of the time you and me are pretty close in what we like and dislike.
And usually I rate stuff a lot higher too. So yeah, this one Dude, it was really hard for me to put that down. I was going to give it a C, and then I was like, no, it really, that's kind of where I land. Like, there's certain scenes that I love, like all the George C. Scott scenes.
Right.
And, but yeah, just all in all, that's just kind of how the feeling I have when I finished watching this movie. I'm just like, man, I wish I liked it more than I do. But I don't know, people. Call me crazy.
Well, I'm glad that this is what the show's all about, is us being really honest on movies.
Trying to be.
Yeah. Unless it's not popular, then we change it anyways. Well, yeah, I think that's about it for right now.
Dude, we're forgetting the big one.
Oh, my Lord.
Is this a midnight watch for you?
Man, it's up there, bro. It's up there. I don't... It's not quite there, though. It doesn't clear that glass ceiling. It's not the immortal midnight watch for me. Like, there's scenes in this movie, like you were saying, where I'm like, oh, I'll enjoy that. But then there's other scenes where, if I was like watch this movie and I wouldn't just sit down and keep watching it. But I would definitely, I will probably
like finish the scene that caught your attention, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's not the type of movie where I'm like constantly quoting it and just like, So it's not quite. What about yourself? It's a D-.
With you on that one. Yeah, but it's a midnight watch.
But it's a midnight watch.
No, it's not true. It's not a midnight watch for me. Though there's some scenes in it that if it came on, and pretty much any of the scenes with George C. Scott, I would totally like stop and watch it.
Right.
But once it moved on, I'd probably turn it off and go to bed.
I feel like you said yourself, this movie kind of makes you kind of sleepy at different parts. How does that not qualify for a midnight watch? You're up late at night and you're just like, oh, it's on and I'm going to sleep. So
and now I'm going to bed.
It's a win-win.
You, Dr. Strangelove.
Dr. Strangelove. Yes. Well, this wraps it up for today's episode. If you want to check out this movie, where did I watch this movie? Amazon Prime. I watched a lot of movies on Amazon Prime. What about you?
Same. Yeah, I rented it on Amazon.
I would buy this movie, though. I'm not going to lie. I would definitely buy this movie. Yeah, special thanks to our sound producer, Jake Colvin. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you shared it with your friends or anyone that you think that would like it.
Yeah, and please hit that subscribe button. We'd love to get a 5-star rating from you if you enjoyed this, especially on Apple Podcasts. We're on Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts. I think I said on the last episode, we're trying to get our YouTube page up. It still hasn't happened yet, but, fingers crossed. If you want to get a hold of us, hit us up at Facebook, Instagram, or you can email us at themidnightwatchpodcast@gmail.com.
That's right. We are always down to talk movies, for sure. Thank you guys so much for listening. You have an awesome week. Check out this flick when you have time. And as always, keep up the watch.